Hello and welcome to the last episode of the podcast. Talk more about that later in the episode. So I'm sure everyone heard about YouTube losing $70 billion in market cap. And I think it was pretty interesting that YouTube trying to self-correct the algorithm by censoring certain topics like conspiracy theories actually ended up hurting their bottom line. And I think this is actually a good thing for YouTubers because, again, YouTube's a part of Google and they're all about making at the end of the day, they're a business trying to make a profit, right? So if it's actually hurting the profit to censor certain topics, then, that's one thing that's actually going to make them make a difference. And so I think they're going to go one of two ways. They're either going to start to lighten up on the censorship and they're going to just not suppress any YouTube channel and just let people watch what they want to watch, to hopefully bring back engagement into the site and to bring advertisers back into the site. Or they could totally go the other way and just double down even more and just censor more channels and demonetize more channels. Like I've been hearing, it's just my heater. I've been seeing a bunch of YouTube videos this week or the past couple of days even, where it's just people are saying like no matter what video they upload, it just auto demonetizes, and that's not a good sign because that just means people are gonna leave the platform. Q1 videos compared to Q4 videos, it's definitely less than 10% the amount of videos are being uploaded, because there's really no guarantee anymore if a video is gonna get monetized. So it's what's the incentive to grind out videos? There is none. So it's that's kind of creating this feedback loop where there's less videos, so there's less content, and then there's less engagement, so there's less advertiser spending. But YouTube could go completely the other way. It'll be interesting to see what's going to happen in the next couple weeks even with the YouTube. Now the CEO of YouTube, she did put out a blog post saying that she's open to hearing more feedback from creators, and that's a good sentiment, I guess, but it really depends. Again, is that just talk just to try to appease people, or is that are they actually going to stop suppressing certain channels and topics? And I don't know, it's definitely interesting. What could end up happening to YouTube, and I hope this doesn't happen because I really like YouTube as a platform, but the same thing that happened to Facebook where millennials left Facebook could happen to YouTube. There could be some new platform that is crypto backed, that doesn't censor anyone, that honestly could, if they had enough funding to get some big YouTubers over, how DLive did with PewDiePie. If a new platform comes up, they could do the same thing. The same thing could happen to YouTube with what happened to Facebook, is that millennials would leave just to be able to watch the content they want to watch. But I hope that doesn't happen. I hope they just stop treating people on YouTube like they have to parent them and censor them from certain topics. It doesn't make any sense. It's people want to watch what they want to watch. There's also a new round of censorship going on other social media platforms like Instagram. Just banned Paul Joseph Watson, InfoWars, Alex Jones, some other conservatives. I think Facebook had a new round as well. I think it was Instagram and Facebook. Again, it's just it's kind of silly and ridiculous what's going on. It's squashing out someone's voice just doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's just a bad way to go. It's we don't agree with you, therefore you shouldn't have a voice. And they totally take them out of context too, which is even worse. Yeah, it's kind of what they did with Trump during the elections. They would just take him out of context, which then drove people to see the full speech that he gave, and they're oh, they're taking Trump out of context, and no one trusts the mainstream media anymore. So yeah, so an update on the 2020 election. Joe Biden has entered the race, which is kind of interesting. He's doing pretty well in the polls, tied with Bernie, on the Democratic side of things. And I think that's mainly due to name recognition. People are saying oh, he's probably going to drop. The more he talks, the more he kind of goes down. in the polls, but be interesting to see. He just kind of seems like he's just going to continue what the Obama administration did pretty much. So also Biden's kind of seen as like the establishment, right? Because he was vice president for 8 years. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work. I don't think a centrist candidate would really work to defeat Trump. I think Trump winning is actually helping a lot of progressives because it kind of shows to the American people that, like, look, anyone could win the presidency and anything's possible. So I think the more unique, a progressive candidate is, the better of a chance they actually have, especially in a crowded field. Like what Andrew Yang said, he's like, a crowded field's actually good for someone like me because I have this, $1,000 a month freedom dividend that helps me stand out among the field. And, I think he's right. Yeah, I definitely can't wait until the end of June where the first presidential debate's going to be. And right now there's only like 6 candidates that have qualified for it. With the national, I think it's 1% you need to be polling nationally, and then also 65,000 individual donors. So it would be interesting to see there. Yeah, there hasn't been too much movement in the polls. Buttigieg has actually been doing pretty well, and he's kind of held his polling position, which is pretty interesting. The only thing is he doesn't have a ton of specific policies, but he does seem more open to specifics. But he actually did he did say he was open to UBI because of automation taking away jobs, so I think that's pretty interesting. I'd like to see if he continues to take that position or if he doesn't. And I think it'll also be interesting to see what happens with the economy, because like if the economy is still doing great, then Trump has a much easier chance of being reelected. And if the economy's bad, definitely does not favor Trump continuing to stay in office, because the Democrats could blame him for the economy going south, basically. But back to Andrew Yang. I definitely like his work ethic. He seems to be doing an interview or a speech just about every day of the week, or during Monday through Friday. He's got new interviews on YouTube almost every day. And I noticed Bernie, Bernie has a lot as well, but Andrew Yang seems to be grinding a little bit more, which is great that he's putting in. To me, it seems like he's putting in more effort than other people, just from the volume of interviews he's doing on different shows. Oh yeah, so been watching Game of Thrones this season, 3 episodes in. The last episode was the Battle of Winterfell, which was pretty epic. There was a lot of fighting going on. Some characters got taken out, but they were kind of minor side characters. Well, I guess so spoilers on this if you haven't seen it yet, but yeah, Theon got taken out, so that is one kind of mainstream character. But it was kind of was tearing up during that, because it was he did a lot of bad things earlier in the show, and then he redeemed himself and in the end, and Bran was like, "You're a good man, Theo." That part kind of made me tear up a little bit, that he avenged his own reputation. In the end, Theon did. It was kind of crazy. It was kind of like a zombie movie at the end there, where it was everyone was just walking through halls, and they were the undead were just walking around like zombies. And honestly, it felt a little bit long, but hey, I guess what else are you gonna do? I was kind of expecting a little bit more Helm's Deep, Lord of the Rings, but yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what I was expecting. I guess it seemed a lot more dark of a situation. They weren't going to get out of it, but then they finally did in the end. But yeah, it's also kind of interesting how the whole thing, the entire show of Game of Thrones, they've been saying winter's coming, and then the one big battle they have, they immediately defeat the undead. It seemed they weren't that big of a threat. Because it's the first battle they had with them, they won and defeated them. So, but I guess there's only 6 episodes this season, so they had to wrap it up in 1 episode, I guess, which is, I kind of wish they did 10 episodes like they did, the first couple seasons, because I feel like a lot of stuff is kind of being rushed. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I guess they're gonna have to take on Cersei next, but yeah, definitely interested to see what happens with Game of Thrones next. Oh yeah, but I did start like a clips channel for this podcast, so you could go check it out. I think I'll have it linked on the channel page or something, but just to kind of highlight more succinct parts of the podcast. Just like starting with any YouTube channel, it's kind of like sometimes you have to go like 20, 30 videos before you even, YouTube starts recommending your videos. So, but that's okay. I think I'll definitely keep going with the podcast and try new, just talk about more interesting things and keep it going, and hopefully it'll keep growing. And I'm also thinking of moving it over to like iTunes as well, because podcasts do pretty well on YouTube, but they do even better on iTunes. So I think I'm going to port it over there sometime soon when I get around to it. But yeah, anyways, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching or listening to this podcast episode. Subscribe if you want more content like this. Give it a thumbs up, and thanks for watching.